By default, when you open a new tab in Chrome, you see a couple of things. You see a search bar and a row of sites you visited most often, and that's about it. You see, there's not much going on in a new tab page. It doesn't really offer much beyond a search bar. Of course, this might be fine for some people. A search bar may be all they need, but for people like me, we crave a little bit more functionality out of our new tab page. That's where certain extensions come into play to add more customization to these pages. Extensions ranging from something as simple as adding a landscape picture to the background to complex extensions that completely change the entire functionality of the new tab page. Personally, I couldn't find an extension that felt aesthetically pleasing and minimal, yet still be able to offer useful functionality outside of delivering just a search box. So I built one myself. I wanted to make something that was minimalistic and functional, so I created Headlines. Essentially an extension that replaces your new tab page with 3 most recent articles from over 50 sources that you choose from. And currently there's also a few secondary features like saving articles so you can read them later, having the ability to tell the local time and weather, and having a somewhat customizable interface. It's just toggling on and off some elements on the page. Now, even with these features added into the extension, I've always wanted to come back and polish up the extension and add some features later on down the road. But I've built this extension around 2 years ago with React when I first learned the framework, and honestly I've been dreading going back to my code due to how messy and cluttered the code looks. I still use the extension on my browser to this day, and I think it's time to revisit the project, clean it up, and get the project ready for more features to be added. Gotta please the fans. Me. I'm the fans. Anyways, let's talk about the current code-based issues like prop drilling. So prop drilling refers to the technique of passing down variables to subcomponents all the way down the component tree of your project. My code in particular suffers from heavy prop drilling, meaning if you were to look through my code, you can see me passing down data from a top level component all the way down to like a 3rd or 4th or even a 5th level component. It's not the prettiest. I've also stopped using SCSS in my projects pretty much entirely, and I'm now using styled components exclusively on all my other projects. Mainly though because of a few things. Props. So you have props for styled components, which are basically the same props you would pass to your React components and allow you to conditionally set your styles depending on the props it receives. Styling any component and extend styles. So with style components, we can easily style any third-party component, or we can even turn our own custom components into styled components to be used throughout the React project. Theming. Probably one of my favorite features is theming. Themes allow us to define an object that is available to all our style components as properties. This means we can define our common styling in one place and have it consistent everywhere else inside the project. And it also allows us to implement light and dark mode within our project. So moving on to bloated components, the Headlines project suffers in some areas from, bloated components. I basically ended up with a giant component which acts as the origin point for business logic and store connections. The issue with this is that over time, the components become harder and harder to maintain. But to fix this issue, I have to go back and refactor and extract some logic out of my components and put them into their own smaller and leaner components. The current folder structure is rather confusing. One of my main issues being the components folder, where I ended up creating a very convoluted system that in the long run makes code that belongs together hard to discover and makes reusing and refactoring components difficult. In the end, this takes away my time from actually improving and adding on more features, and instead has me spending most of it trying to figure out where my files are in the project. So I'm going to flatten out the folders some, and by that I mean just remove some of those extra nested folders and instead use the directory per component approach for a better personal experience while I'm completing this project. This is a folder structure that I've personally been using for a while now and is something I've grown quite fond of. And let me just say that this is by no means the right way to structure a React project. It's just the way that works for me personally for this project. Now, to build out the components. I'll be starting with the layout components, since I generally like to start off with projects with components that define how things will be laid out on a page, then go into the detail of each component. So for our extension, we have the header, sidebar, footer, and the main component as layout components. Well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.